Friendship is a film that is wall-to-wall jokes, bits, and absurdity. Directed by Andrew DeYoung, who, as far as I could tell, is making his feature debut after doing a ton of work in television, the movie feels somewhat loose in its narrative, but tight in its comedic timing. It's a strange and delightful mix. Think The Cable Guy told from Jim Carrey's perspective, with a splash of Tommy Boy's lovable chaos, all tied together with the surreal, cringy brilliance of I Think You Should Leave. I have a lot of thoughts on this movie and a lot of love for this movie, so stick around. Let's talk about it. The story follows Craig, played by Tim Robinson, a suburban dad struggling to make meaningful connections. He befriends a new neighbor, Austin, played by Paul Rudd, but a social mishap at a party drives them apart. From there, Craig spirals into a series of desperate, ill-conceived attempts to connect with anyone and everyone who will give him the time of day. Whether it's trying to rekindle his relationship with his wife and teenage son, or befriending strangers, Craig bumbles from one hijink to another with all the grace of a seal attempting a kickflip. Now, on a surface level, Friendship feels like a string of I Think You Should Leave sketches stitched together with just enough narrative glue to hold them in place. And honestly, that's fine. Comedy is one of those rare genres where the central question isn't, does the story work, but rather, is it funny? The answer here is a resounding yes. This is without a doubt one of the funniest films I have seen in years. So funny that minor critiques about pacing or narrative cohesion honestly just feel irrelevant. I truly cannot remember the last time I laughed as frequently or as hard in a theater as I did to this movie. I would probably have to go all the way back to seeing Jackass 3D when I was in high school. And all of that said, it's worth noting the film's self-awareness, especially in its A24 pedigree. The cinematography feels like a tongue-in-cheek nod to the studio's elevated horror movies with framing, lighting setups, and music cues that wouldn't look out of place in Hereditary or It Comes at Night or The Last Black Man in San Francisco. At times, it feels like a parody of what we've come to expect from A24, but with pratfalls and awkward silences in place of looming existential dread. Now, at the heart of all of this is Tim Robinson, a comedic force who has fully cemented himself as a modern fixture in the comedy world. If you've followed his career up to now, SNL, Detroiters, and of course, I Think You Should Leave, you already know what Robinson is capable of. But Friendship takes that signature energy and amplifies it. Every line delivery, every micro expression, every muttered aside lands with pinpoint precision. I was sitting in a packed theater, and it was clear that I wasn't alone in my assessment that Tim Robinson is an absolute genius in this movie. The audience was in hysterics for the entire runtime, and so was I. I swear to God, I don't think that there's one line in this movie delivered by Tim Robinson that doesn't get a laugh. And I don't know, maybe it's just his face, maybe it's just his voice, but there is something undeniably funny about the man. Now, understanding the appeal of Friendship begins with recognizing the comedic lineage that it emerges from, particularly the aforementioned I Think You Should Leave. Tim Robinson's sketch series has become a cultural touchstone for my generation and younger generations, offering a kind of offbeat, irreverent humor that feels uniquely tuned to modern sensibilities. Like the great surrealist comedies of the past, Tim and Eric Awesome Show, Great Job, The Eric Andre Show, and the countless zany experiments of Adult Swim, Robinson's work thrives on sharp, chaotic energy. But what sets it apart, and what makes Friendship resonate so deeply, is the way that it roots that absurdity in something more profound, a deep understanding of societal conventions and the discomfort that they create. Like I'm sure many of you out there, I'm currently watching season 2 of Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal, and it truly just feels like we're fully submerged in this new era of comedy, a more elevated comedy, if you will. I hate using that term, but it feels appropriate here. What we're talking about is not absurdity for absurdity's sake. While earlier comedies of this ilk reveled in anarchic nonsense, I Think You Should Leave and Friendship finds its humor in moments of human awkwardness, the ways that we fail to navigate the unspoken rules of social interaction. A man not wanting to admit that he's underwhelmed by a birthday present, or refusing to admit that he's choking at a dinner table isn't just funny because it's ridiculous. It's funny because it speaks to something primal within us, the fear of being judged, the desperation to appear normal, and the absurd lengths that we'll go to avoid admitting when we're out of place. And Friendship carries this ethos into its story, channeling the same chaotic, self-aware energy while using it to explore the emotional terrain of adult relationships. Much like I Think You Should Leave, it taps into a sense of alienation and insecurity that feels uniquely contemporary. For millennials like myself and Gen Z, generations steeped in a world of heightened social anxieties, ever-present imposter syndrome, and a culture of performative authenticity, this kind of comedy cuts straight to the core. The humor in Friendship isn't just about the absurd situations or offbeat characters. It's about the profound discomfort of trying to connect in a world that often feels impenetrable. The laughter comes from recognition, from seeing our own fears and failures reflected back at us through a funhouse mirror. In this way, Friendship feels like a natural evolution of Robinson's comedic style, a film that understands that the real absurdity isn't in the situation itself, but in the deeply human, deeply painful attempts to navigate it. I know that I'm getting sort of deep and philosophical about this, but to me, that's what makes this so exciting. By grounding its zaniness in emotional truths, Friendship feels like a comedy that could only exist in this moment. It's reflective of a broader shift in comedy, one that blends the surreal with the deeply personal, the absurd with the melancholic. Like I Think You Should Leave, it thrives on irreverence but never loses sight of the humanity beneath the chaos. And in doing so, it offers something rare, a comedy that's as cathartic as it is hilarious, as unsettling as it is relatable. After watching this movie and reflecting a little bit, I really was transported back to a comedy that I loved as a kid, Tommy Boy. I mentioned it earlier, but there's a clear path you could see from Chris Farley trying to sell his company's brake pads to a car manufacturer and what Tim Robinson is doing here in this movie. It's not a true one-to-one, but it's indicative of the evolution of comedy over time. And like I alluded to earlier, we all have a little bit of Craig in us, that part of us that wants to be included, to be seen, but struggles to bridge the gap between ourselves and others. Watching Craig stumble, bumble, and occasionally make an ass of himself is equal parts cringe-inducing and cathartic. It's funny, yeah, but it's also poignant because Craig's plight feels uncomfortably close to home. In a way, and this is fitting because of the A24 of it all, it's almost like a horror film. But the horror isn't a monster or a jump scare. It's the fear of being perpetually on the outside looking in. That's what makes Friendship so distinctly of this moment. It's a comedy built for a world where isolation has become a defining feature of our collective experience, where the act of reaching out to another person can feel like the scariest thing imaginable. And yet, for all of this bleakness, I must remind you and reiterate that Friendship is funny as fuck. It's the kind of funny that makes you laugh and wince at the same time. It's absurd and unrelenting with moments of sheer ridiculousness that catch you off guard. But beneath it all is a beating heart, one that I maybe wish we got to see a bit more of. All of that being said, Friendship is also, in my opinion, a communal experience, the kind of comedy that thrives in a crowded theater. It's the rare kind of film that makes you feel like part of an inside joke with 100 strangers in a dark room. Sure, the movie ends a few too many times, and by the final act, I was feeling the runtime, which only clocks in at an hour 40, but as soon as it was over, I found myself wishing for another hour. I'm curious if this movie is going to have any sort of universal appeal, as that would be indicative of changing tides in society's sensibilities for comedy, or if this is an example of a particular flavor working for some and putting off others, kind of like how cilantro can taste like soap to some people, but like cilantro to others. I guess time will tell, but in the years to come, I truly believe that Friendship will be looked back on as a comedy classic, a marker of a shifting tide in what makes us laugh. It's a movie that not only embraces its weirdness, but revels in it, and it invites us all to do the same. So do yourself a favor, go see Friendship in a crowded theater full of people, bring your friends, or hey, maybe make some new ones in the theater. And sure, they might turn out to be psychopaths, but yeah, you know what? On second thought, just keep to yourself. And that's going to do it from me in this video. Those are my thoughts on Andrew DeYoung's Friendship, starring Tim Robinson and Paul Rudd. Let me know what you thought of Friendship down in the comments. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified when new videos come out on this channel. And I will see you all next time.